So in terms of a JRPG mechanic that I think is dope, this week I want to talk about post-story content. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this because the specifics I actually want to talk about in the next segment of what I've been playing this week. But this concept of post-story content is interesting to me because I haven't really seen this in a JRPG before personally. And what I mean specifically is post-story content, not post-game content. So post-game content is a thing that's very familiar if you played Kingdom Hearts. You usually have that, for example, data battles or secret boss battles or whatever. That is something that you see in a lot of JRPGs where after you've done the main story of the game, they let you have either extra modes or maybe mini games or whatever extra battle that you get to do. And usually it's very gameplay focused. It's not really story focused. Where a game that I want to talk about is Trails into Reverie, which is a game that I beat recently. And I'm not going to go into details right now, but so no spoilers. But after you beat the game, something happens where you actually get to play more post game. And what surprised me is that it actually takes place post story. So something very popular that happens in like every JRPG is once you beat the game and there is post game content, what they always do is that they always reverse time back to before the final boss battle. So a good example of that is Kingdom Hearts 2. The final boss battle is you fight Xemnas, and when you beat it, it just reverses back to right before you fight Xemnas, and then you can just kind of fuck around in the world, do data battles, whatever you want. And then if you want to fight Xemnas again, you can. Where Trails into Reverie, you beat the final boss, and then the post-game content actually takes place after the final boss. So when I talk to characters, they actually mention stuff from the cutscenes that happen after you beat the final boss, and which is really cool. I've never seen that in a JRPG, so that's something that I wish more JRPGs would do. The only time I feel like you actually see this is in like DLCs, which is a completely different thing. It's something that you usually have to buy, and it's kind of like episodic and it's a little thing. And again, sometimes it's not even story focused, sometimes it's gameplay focused. I guess one example is like Final Fantasy 16, which actually no, not even Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16 can be post story because of, I won't go into it because of the way it ends. So never mind. I was gonna say Final Fantasy 16 does have post-story content because of the DLC, but I don't think that is post-story either. So I don't know if I can think of any example now that I think about it. Like I'm sure there are some JRPGs that have DLCs where it takes place post the story, but usually the way JRPGs end is like you're the hero, you save the world, and evil is now gone. And so that's usually the way the story ends, and I guess the game creators can't really find a way to have more content past that because everything is done. And again, without going to spoilers, Reverie does have that similar type of story where like you fight the bad guys are gone, blah blah blah, but they still found a way to have more story past the ending, which I thought was just very fucking interesting. And I just finished it, so I'm just like maybe like 2 hours into the post-story content, but when I was playing it, it was just so interesting to me that like I was seeing these scenes and talking to characters, and they were literally mentioning stuff about the final boss, and they were mentioning about like after you beat the final boss, there's like a bunch of cutscenes of events that happened. They were talking about those events and talking about what happened after that. It was such a new experience for me, and especially it's because it's a series that I love so much. It's just something that I wish more games did. Like I would fucking love if I was playing a Kingdom Hearts game and after I beat the final boss, I just got to stay in a world post final boss and just explore around. And of course, if I want to fight the final boss again, they can have a portal or whatever the fuck they want to do to fight the final boss again. But I want to be in a world where the big bad is gone. I can just talk to people, and it's kind of like a different world. It's a different state of the world, which I wonder why they don't do. Like, I guess it's well because like usually the bad guys would be gone. But yeah, just such an interesting concept to me that I wish more games would really kind of get into. And I'll be completely honest, like the way Reverie isn't that big in scope. It's not like once you beat the final boss you get to explore the entire world in a post boss world. I guess I can just go into a bit of specifics. If you don't want to hear about it, skip to the next segment. But pretty much the way Reverie works is you're in the real world and you get to play the story, but once in a while you have to go into this different space-time realm called the Reverie, and you just keep on doing that throughout the game. You go into this kind of own realm called the Reverie, then you go to the real world, you go to Reverie, real world, etc. And pretty much the entire post-game takes place in Reverie, and you're not allowed to leave. If you leave, it forces you to start a new game. And so I guess this is the reason why they were able to make this post-story content, because you're in a very confined space with a confined amount of characters. But again, the fact that the characters reference the final battle, like that's good enough for me. And there's a system where you get to kind of get these daydreams, which are kind of like flashbacks with a lot more story, and they've done like cool stuff in that too. And so to me, this is just more story. And specifically when you beat the game, they literally say there is a lot of additional content left. So I wonder what that means in terms of hours. Like, is that 5 hours? Is that 10 hours? Is that 20 hours? I doubt it, but like I'm very interested to see and keep playing the game to see what I can get out of the post-story content. But yeah, I'll stop rambling here, but hopefully more JRPGs do kind of try this post-story content type of strategy, because it was a lot more interesting to me than the normal you're done the game, let's go back to before the boss, and here's extra battles you can do, which usually are like kind of whatever. Whereas if there's more story, that's a lot more interesting to me.